All right. All right. All right. All right. Let me make sure. Test, test. I am trying to see if I'm live, y'all, because I was having some technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I am going to get right into the content as soon as I see that I'm actually live here, real quick, because um, I don't want to abuse your time. So let's see. Let's see. Let me make sure we good here. I was having some tech difficulties over on the Zoom. So those of you that registered for the Zoom link, we are here on Facebook. We should be on YouTube. I think we're on LinkedIn as well. But welcome, family, to the Masterclass. Welcome to the Masterclass. Some of you guys have been seeing this post. Some of you guys have DM me and asked me for the link. So we are here. We are here. And again, I am very, very mindful of your time tonight. So I want to get right into it. Um, for those of you that uh, have been taking a look at these posts. I was talking with one of my business coaches the other day, and they were asking about this event, and I was telling them, I said, it's been, this one was a little different because I did not promote this one like I would normally promote a class of this nature, and I'm understanding now why that's the case, right? Some of y'all saw a video that I did the other day, and I mentioned that this content, this information is for who it's for. And so I didn't want to come off, um, like you normally would, where somebody is just boosting their event like crazy, because I wanted to speak to a very, very specific group of people. And again, I understand how this works. So again, if this is for you, I believe tonight you are going to be able to identify the things that's been keeping you stuck, the things that's been keeping you stuck, not just in your professional life, but mainly in your personal life as well. So we're going to talk about what I'm calling the identity shift. Okay. Again, I've never ever taught this before, so you are in for a treat. But one of the things that I do ask is that as you are joining in, definitely get engaged in this conversation, because it's normally when I do a master class, it is very, very hands-on, very interactive. And obviously, because of the tech difficulties, I'm not able to do that via the Zoom. Platform for whatever reason, but we are here. So as you are jumping on, definitely any questions, comments, whatever that you have, just go ahead and type those into the comment section, and I will be sure to address those accordingly if need be. All right, so again, welcome to the identity shift masterclass. Okay, so here's what this is all about, right? I want to show you how, as a high capacity leader, and we're gonna go into that in a little bit, how a high capacity leader and why a high capacity leader stays stuck. Okay. Now, let me say this before we go into the information. This is not some theory that I read in a book. This is not something that someone set me down and told me. This, what I'm getting ready to share with you, is my real life experiences and the lessons that I've learned as a result of getting to this place where I was stuck. No matter what I did, no matter what career path that I pursued, no matter the certifications, the degrees, any of that stuff, I still remained stuck. And I didn't understand why until I came across what I'm calling in this masterclass tonight the three internal resets. So, why you as a high capacity leader stay stuck. And I'm going to talk about the three internal resets that will unlock your clarity, it's going to unlock your confidence, and it's going to unlock your cash flow. So let's get right into it, because your time is valuable. Here's the first thing that I need you to remember. And for some of you, the first thing that I need you to understand, okay? And that is Proverbs 23, verse 7 tells us that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Now, this is key to understanding where we're going and why this is so important, because many people read this scripture, many people read this principle and think that it's talking about that muscle that's beating in your chest. That's not what this means when it says as a man thinks in his heart. This word heart is translated as your mind, right? So as a man thinks in his subconscious mind, so is he. So here's the first thing that I want to remind you of, that you are the sum total of your consistent thoughts that you have allowed to take root in your mind. I'll say that again. You are the you are the result of the sum total of your thoughts that you have allowed to take root in your mind, in your heart, in your mind up until this point. So let me share with you what we are going to discuss. Now, if I feel like, or if it sounds like I'm rushing through this, uh, it's because again, I got a lot of information to get across to you, but at the same time, I want to be mindful of your time. Okay. So here's what we are going to discuss. Number one, I'm going to share with you why capable people stall. Okay. That was me for a long time. I was more than capable of achieving the level of success that I imagined myself having. However, there was a reason that I was stalling, right? You are more than capable of achieving the success that you desire to have, but you haven't been able to pinpoint why you're stalling. Why do you get to a certain point and it seems like you can't get over that hurdle, right? We're going to talk about it. Number two, we're going to talk about the reason clarity buckles under pressure. You may say, what in the world are you talking about? Listen, you can be somewhat clear on what you're supposed to be doing, but when you're met against opposition, you begin to buckle under the pressure. I'm gonna share with you why that is. Okay. So number two, we're going to discuss the reason that clarity buckles under pressure. And then of course, this is the part that I really, really am looking forward to getting into. And that is the three, what I'm calling the three internal resets that's going to restore your alignment. Okay. So if you are ready, I want you to go ahead and type in I'm ready in the comments below. But here's the thing. Okay. Here's a hard truth that I had to understand. I had to come to grips with. I had to accept in my own life. Okay. Most people, not all, most people don't lack talent. Okay, most people don't lack talent. There's a plethora of talented people in the world. Talent is not the issue. Most people don't lack talent. What most people lack is what I'm calling internal alignment. Internal alignment. I'm gonna share with you what I mean by that. This was definitely me at many times in my life, honestly, where I had the talent. I had everything that I needed. I went through the bumps and the bruises. I went through the classes. I went through the trainings and the seminars and the coaching and all of that. I had the talent. I had the ability to perform and produce, but I wasn't lacking this internal alignment that we're going to talk about. So, I have a question for you. If that is the case, that most people don't lack talent, but they lack this internal alignment, I want to ask you this. Why do some people work hard for years, yet they never experience the life they believe they were created for? I'll say it again. Why do people work hard for years and years and years and years, yet they never experienced the life that they believe they were created for? And I'm going to share with you why that is, because the truth of the matter is this. Okay. The truth of the matter is this: most people try to change their actions in order to create transformation. Okay. Most people try to change their actions in order to create the transformation. Now, I'm not saying that you changing your actions does not have its place. However, most people try to change their actions to create the transformation. But what I've come to realize is that real transformation happens when you change who you believe you are. I'll say it again. Real transformation happens when you change who you believe you are, not who people tell you that you are. We're going to talk about that later in this class. But there's a gap between who you know you are and how you're currently operating. And again, this can be both personal or professional, but you need to understand that there's a gap, and you probably do understand that, right? You probably just like me, you were afraid to deal with and deal with the issues within that gap, and you were afraid to close the gap because you didn't know what was on the other side, right? But there is, make no mistake about it, there's a gap between who you know you are and how you are currently operating. So for those of you who may not know who I am, you may just, see me every now and again. Some of you guys know who I am, but I just want to introduce myself to those that are coming across me for the first time. First and foremost, I'm not one that push accolades and so forth, but I understand we're in a society where people need to see receipts, right? So I want to share with you a couple of receipts just to get you on the same page as me. All right. So first and foremost, I was born in the great city of Flint, Michigan. Some of you guys are very familiar with Flint because of the water crisis. Yes, my family and I were there in the midst of the water crisis. That's actually part of the reason that you're going to hear about here shortly, why my wife and I decided to move from that city and move to where we are now in the Texas area. And but we were born and raised in Flint. I tell people all the time that Flint is literally a diamond mine. It really is. There's so many talented people, so many capable leaders in Flint. But again, God told us that it was time to leave that area and leave that place, and so he migrated us. He sent us here to the Texas area, and life has been absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. So on top of that, of course, my wife and I, you can see the picture right there in the middle. My wife and I have a blended family. We have several children. We have 8 children now. We're actually we have 4 grandchildren at the same time. This, of course, is a very older picture. However, this is one of the things that I really, really am grateful for. I'm grateful for my family. And as we go throughout this masterclass, you're going to hear some very personal stories of mine, because I believe that all of our stories leads to the person that we can, or that we're leading to become at some point. Okay. So this is my family, my wife and I. We have been together a little over 15 years, I believe it is. Married 12 years, and life is beautiful. Life is beautiful. Some of you guys know my wife. She is definitely a game changer. So I've currently authored several books. Here are 3 of my best-selling books, honestly. Lion's Den, Cultivating Potential Within Purpose, and the Men's Mental Health Legacy Journal are some of my works. I also written manuals for educators. Um, I spent a considerable amount of time in the educational industry, and I also do a lot of public speaking. In addition to that, I do have uh, consulting firm, a leadership consulting firm, in which we're able to help leaders identify what we call the ILD, which is a invisible leadership drag. I literally show leaders how to tap into the areas that they're lacking in. I'm gonna use this word, right? That they're lacking in. I help them identify the barriers so that they can be productive both in their personal and in their professional life. I'm a firm believer that you may be successful in public, but in private, that says a completely different story. And so, what we do with the ILD assessment is we help leaders to be able to first and foremost stop running from the barriers that's keeping them stagnant, and we help them to be able to explode out of that. All right. So that's a couple of things. Now, in addition to that, as I stated before, spent a considerable amount of time in the educational industry. 26 years, as a matter of fact, as a former educator and a school principal at one point. Again, as I stated, we have multiple businesses. I have a bachelor's in education. My master's is in executive leadership, and I have a earned doctorate in strategic leadership. And so, again, I'm not saying this to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that if you're on this call or and you're in this class tonight and you are one that's going after the certification, the degrees and all of that stuff, I've been there, right? And I'm not telling you don't do it. Please don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. I am not telling you not to go after those things if God is leading you in that direction. What I am telling you is not to depend on it, not to depend on it, because here's the reality check. Here's the reality check. In the midst of all of that, the reality of it, family, is I'm just like you. There's nothing different. There's nothing special about me compared to you. We are all on the level playing field. But here is a question that I have for you: true or false? I want you to go ahead and comment down below. I see some of you guys coming in. I want you to comment on this down below. What do you think? What do you think? Is this statement true or false? The moment someone sees themselves as a leader, they begin to act like one. Is that true or false? The moment someone sees themselves as a leader, they begin to act like one. I want to know, where do you stand with that question? The moment someone sees themselves as a leader, they begin to act like one. Is that true or false? Let me know what you think. Let me know. Man, I wish that Zoom was working properly, because I would bring you guys in and let you actually engage and talk this thing through. That's normally what I do in a master class, is I let people chime in, because I want to see people grow. I want to see people win. Okay. Okay. So Anthony, I see false. I see okay, okay, false. Okay, okay. The moment someone sees themselves as a leader, they begin to act like one. Hmm. Okay. Okay. I like it. I like it. Let's keep going. We're gonna get back to it. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Here's the thing. Here's what I want you to understand. Okay. Once identity shifts, behavior begins to change naturally. Now, you may say, I don't know if I agree with that. I'm gonna show you why I'm saying this here in just a second, but this is just food for thought. If you're taking notes, make sure you take notes with this. Take a screenshot if you need to, right? But once identity shifts, okay, your behavior begins to change naturally. I like it, Ryan. I see you. I can say true, but I'm interested in the but. I'm interested in what's coming after the but. So here's the thing. Here's another question that I want you to chime in on down in the comments. Okay. What would the person I'm becoming do? What would the person I'm becoming do? Now, again, you may say, well, that's an incomplete question. Not necessarily. I want you to dig deep here. What would the person I'm becoming do? What would you do if what? I want you to fill in the blank. If there were no reservations, if there was no barrier to this internal battle that you're dealing with, what would the person that you becoming, what would you do? What would the person I'm becoming do? Now, you can either look at this as a win or lose situation. You can look at this as a positive or a negative, because the person that you're becoming may not be the best version of who you should become, right? So currently where you are, what would the person I'm becoming do? Okay. Now watch this. Watch this. Next point. Most people, I've learned this along the way. Okay. Most people have conditioned the brain to seek safety before expansion. Most people have conditioned the brain to seek safety before expansion. You may say, what in the world am I talking about? Some of you guys have probably heard the quote from, I believe it was Ralph Waldo Emerson that is quoted for this or noted for saying this, but he said, the mind or the mind, like a rubber band, once it's stretched beyond its original capacity, it will never return to its original dimension. I'll say it again. Once the mind is stretched to new capacity, like a rubber band, it will never return back to its original dimension. Okay. So here's something that I had to accept in my own life. I ran from it for years. I ran from it for years, and I'm gonna tell you why in a little bit. But what you choose not to invest into, you choose not to pay attention to. I'll say it again. What you choose not to invest into, you choose not to pay attention to. Okay? Let that sit for a second. Why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Because your brain protects what we call familiar patterns. Okay. Some of you guys are very familiar with a term that we use called pattern recognition. Okay. But your brain protects familiar patterns, even if they limit you. Okay. I'll speak from personal experience. Part of the reason that I was so hesitant on moving from my comfortable place of Flint, Michigan, moving all the way here to Texas was because it was so familiar to me, right? And I didn't know what was coming on the other side of the move. Again, I've never at that time moved outside of Flint, right? Of course, I went off to college, but that was still in Michigan, right? So it was very, very familiar for me, and my brain was protecting the familiar pattern. So I didn't even allow my mind to expand beyond where I was because I was afraid of the unknown. Okay. And again, like you and like me, you are very, very familiar with this truth that protecting the familiar pattern can limit you. Okay. So here's the deal, right? If identity, therefore, feels threatened, then what I've come to realize and what I've come to experience is that my performance will shrink every single time. Every single time that I got out of alignment of who I really was, that's when my performance would shrink. Now, what I was accustomed to and what I was familiar with was coming up with excuses behind why I could not do A, B, or C. Is this making sense? I had to come up with justifiable reasons in my own mind. Remember this, as a man thinketh in his heart, his mind, his subconscious mind, so is he. So I had to entertain, and I continue to entertain why I could not move forward. What I didn't realize, however, is that that was threatening my identity of who I really was. And by default, my performance would begin to shrink. Hopefully, this is making sense. If this is making sense, just go ahead and comment below. Now, let's keep going because I want to be mindful of your time. Now, let me bring you to another principle, another scripture. Romans 12 Romans chapter 12 verse 2. It reminds us that we must be transformed by the renewing of our mind. We must be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And I'm gonna be honest, I would read this principle for so many years, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds, sounds good. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. But what I was missing was the ing on the end of renewing. I will always omit that. I will always run away from that, right? I will always run away from the ing at the end of renewing. Why am I saying that? Because the word renewing is indicative to, for me, it was telling me that this was an ongoing process. And if I was already familiar with certain patterns as a result of my mistaken identity, don't let me lose you. I'm about to get deep. If I was allowing my familiar patterns to become the norm as a result of my mistaken identity, then going through this consistent renewal was something that I ran from. But I wanted results. So my question to you is, why and how could I expect results if I'm not willing to do what I was required to do in order to get the results? But let me tell you what trap I fell into, because, like me, some of you are in the same trap. And I want to share with you why you are remaining stuck as a high capacity leader. Here is the truth. I fell into this trap of what many of us know as information overload. Every bit of information I would get my hands on, I would read this. I would study it. I would watch all the YouTube videos. I'll go to the conferences. You name it, man. I would invest in myself, which is important. Don't misunderstand me. I already, like we already said, that what you choose not to invest into, you won't pay attention to. So I was paying attention to feeding my mind. I was paying attention to changing the way that I thought. I was paying attention to transforming or renewing my mind. The problem with this was I went into what we call information overload, where I was just consuming the information, but within myself, I was not regurgitating the information. In other words, I was reading all the things, but I wasn't necessarily applying all the information in the areas that I needed to apply it the most, right? And so I fell into this spiral of trying to get all the certifications, trying to get the degrees and stuff of that nature, and I did it for the wrong reasons. Now, let me pause here. I'm not in any way telling you that my training was done in vain, right? Even up to my doctoral degree. I listen, I'll say this publicly. The only reason that I pursued it is because God told me that it was a part of the journey. That's honestly the reason that I mean, for those of you, and I know I have some fellow doctors on the call, and here's the thing, right? I personally, fellas and ladies, I did not fall into the category of saying, "Man, I just want to make so and so proud. I always wanted a doctor." All that, like, I don't fall into that category. Like, the only reason I pursued it is because God told me years ago that it was a part of the journey, and so I had no choice. Right? I had no choice but to pursue it. But I will say this: I still fell into the trap of going into information overload, where I was just consuming and consuming and consuming and consuming. It's funny because my brothers and I, we have a text thread. We talk literally every single day, and I'm always referring books to them, right? And so it's a laugh and joke in our text thread right now. They're asking, me to send this books and so forth. And the interesting thing was, my brother asked a very, very important question. He said, "Are you just consuming the information, or are you applying it?" Now, again, I know what he meant by it. Now, I will say this: the old me will probably have been offended by the question, because the old me would have had to deal with the reality that I was just consuming the information instead of applying it. Now it doesn't bother me. I know how to apply it, right? And I'm gonna show you how to do it. But here's the trap that we will fall into. So we would consume this information as high capacity leaders, and it puts us in a place of procrastination. It puts us in a place of just freezing and just remaining at a standstill, because we have all of the knowledge, we have all of the information, we have all of the content, we have all of the research, but yet we don't know where to apply it, right? And so I fell into this. So here is the bread and butter. Let's get into this. Are y'all ready? Let's get into it. Let's get into it. So here's the question: why do high capacity leaders stay stuck? Why do high capacity leaders stay stuck? I'm interested in your thoughts before we go into it. Why do high capacity leaders stay stuck? Go ahead and chime in below. I'm going to get a drink of water real quick. Yes, this is live. Why do high capacity leaders stay stuck? Why does this happen? Okay. Now, while you're thinking about that, here's a question that I want you to think about, and even write this down if you're taking notes. How many of you know exactly what to do, but you don't do it on a consistent basis? How many of you know exactly what to do, but for whatever reason, you don't do it on a consistent basis? Why is that? Why is that? Okay. Why is that? For me, this is what I was faced with. I realized along this journey that high capacity, although is good, but high capacity without this internal structure will create self sabotage. You may say, "Dr. Mike, what are you talking about?" We stay with me, stay with me. This high capacity that we all strive for is a good thing. It can be a good thing, but without internal structure, it creates a self sabotage. So let's talk about this for a second. When we talk about self sabotage, there's three symptoms of self sabotage. Okay. The first one is We're overthinking instead of executing. Kind of goes with the information overload, right? We're consuming all of this content, but yet we're not applying any of what we're reading. We're overthinking instead of executing. Number two, there's inconsistent momentum. A lot of times, as high capacity leaders, we're already thinking about what's next, right? From personal experience, I remember when I completed my master's in executive leadership, like literally the very second that I submitted my final assignment for my master's program, I was immediately signing up for my doctorate in strategic leadership. I was like, there was no hesitation. I immediately, soon as I hit submit, I went over and I registered as a doctoral student. It was mind blowing. I'm like, what in the world am I doing? Right. But sometimes we mistake momentum as progress, and it's not necessarily progress at the time. Right. So there's this inconsistent momentum that takes place. That's a system of self sabotage. Now, mind you, none of this right now none of what we talked about so far has anything to do with anything external. It's all internal. It's all internal. Watch this. The self sabotage, the third symptom is the income hesitation despite competence, right? Again, I fell into this trap of thinking that I had to have quote unquote all ducks in a row. I had to have all the certifications. I had to have all the knowledge. I had to have the high level degrees. I had to have all of these things in order to justify that I'm capable, watch this, capable and qualified to make the income that I desired. Got it? Okay, watch. Watch this. Watch this. Okay. This one here may prick a little bit, but I need to share it. Most people try to change their actions to create transformation. We said this before, but real transformation happens when you change who you believe you are. Okay. Most people try to change their actions in order to create the transformation, and you may have some results as a result, because you can have all the information, but you also have to take action. So we're not minimizing the action is necessary, right? But the real transformation happens when you change who you believe you are. You may say, how do you do that? Watch this. We have to first be able to identify why there's some things that has contributed to you believing what you believe about yourself. Okay, so here's the thing: most people operate from an inherited identity that's either shaped by your family, it's shaped by the culture, it's shaped by some form of trauma, and past experiences or past mistakes. Okay. Past experiences or past mistakes. Now, one of the things that I stop running from internally, and I'll just be honest with you, one of the things that I stop running from internally is using the word trauma. Because as leaders, we don't ever want to admit that we've had to experience trauma. I'm gonna just be honest. I'm thinking trauma only affects the weak, but that's not true. Every single person, I don't care who you are, I don't care how educated you are, I don't care how brilliant you are. Every single person on the planet has experienced and or is experiencing some form of trauma. There's no way around it. No way around it. Okay. Everybody has experienced this. And so those things shape your identity or what you believe about yourself. But here's the thing, okay? Misaligned identity leads to this overworking, this procrastination, the inconsistency, and the imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. My goodness, if we have never been faced with a time in society now where we are met with imposter syndrome, this is crazy out here, right? There are so many imposters out here. Now, this is not throwing a brick at anybody that's out here fronting and capping like they something that they're not. Okay, but my goodness, there are so many people. that is out like literally they're fronting like there's somebody that they're not. And for a person that for a person that has actually gone through this phase of being an imposter, it's very easy to spot it, right? Very easy to spot it. But you have to understand that this misaligned identity that you and I face, it leads to the overworking. It leads to the information overload, which leads to the procrastination, which leads to the inconsistency. And of course, the foundation of it all is this imposter syndrome. But the real issue, family, is people try to fix motivation, right? That's why so many people they go to these motivational seminars and they go, they listen to the motivational teaching online and stuff like that. Nothing is wrong with that. Please don't misunderstand me. Nothing is wrong with it. But people try to fix motivation and productivity when the real issue is identity. Write it down. People try to fix motivation and productivity when the real issue is identity. You may say, what am I talking about? Let me help you with this. Take a screenshot. Again, people try to fix motivation and productivity, but the real issue is identity. So I want to share with you what I call the identity equation. The identity equation. What is the identity equation? The identity equation says this: identity multiplied by your beliefs, multiplied by your decisions, multiplied by your actions will equal your results. Again, identity multiplied by beliefs, multiplied by decisions, multiplied by actions equals your results. All of these must work together in order for you to create the desired result that you want. This is why high capacity leaders get stuck. Is because again, the foundation of where they are, or the foundation of the issue starts at identity, which is multiplied by the beliefs, and it feeds the beliefs, right? Your belief system about yourself will then be multiplied by your decision, which is multiplied by your action. Thus, you have your results. So, here is a truth bomb for everybody. Please, please, please understand this. Great leaders, effective leaders, first change who they believe themselves to be. That's the foundation. That's the key. You must first change who you believe yourself to be. Okay. Now, I call this the identity shift framework. Now we getting ready to get into it. Don't let me lose you. Okay. The identity shift framework. Let's talk about these three internal resets. Reset number one. Reset number one is what I call the narrative recalibration. This is the awareness phase, right? This is the awareness phase. In this phase, the objective is to become aware of the identity currently shaping your life. Okay. Now, this is usually the toughest phase, which is why I said it's reset number one, because if you get this right, everything else by default becomes easier. It's not easy, but it's easier to be able to plow through it. Okay. The objective here is to become aware of the identity that's currently shaping your life. But here's the problem. Here's the problem in this phase. Your old internal scripts are what's currently driving your present hesitation. I'll say it again. Your old internal scripts, internal, not external. Okay. Your old internal scripts are what's driving your present hesitation. For example, you may say to yourself in public, you say that you're good enough, but in private, you say, I'm not, right? In public, you say that I don't need any more education. But in private, you're reminding yourself that you don't have the proper education or the right degree. In public, you may be saying so and so is more qualified, but in private, you're saying so and so is more qualified than me, right? In public, no one in my family has ever done it. Oh, I'm sorry. In public, you're acknowledging that no one in your family has ever done it from not an egotistical but a positive standpoint. Like, man, I'm the first one that's ever done it. But in private, you're looking at yourself like, what makes me think I can if no one in my family has ever done it? Is that making sense? So here's the intentional redirect. This is what is necessary. There's repetition that strengthens your neural pathways. I honestly, for the sake of time, I don't have the time to go into what I mean when I say neural pathways. But again, remember that the mind, like a rubber band, once it's stretched beyond its original capacity or its original capacity, it will never return to its original dimension. So the repetition of this negativity is what's strengthening your neural pathways. That can be either good or bad, right? So here's an exercise that I want you to do really, really quick. Write this down. Write this down. Again, if you were in the Zoom class, then you would, like, literally, I'll bring you on and we can really, really discuss this. But by all means, let's go ahead and chime in. Okay. So here's an exercise for you. I want you to identify and I want you to write down one limiting internal narrative that you've told yourself over the years. I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to write that down. Identify and write down one limiting internal narrative that you've told yourself over the years. And if you're so bold enough to do so, go ahead and put that in the comment section below. What is one thing that you have? What's one limiting narrative, right? Internal narrative, not what someone has told you about you that well, if you've accepted it, that could very well be that limiting narrative. But what is something that is holding you back that you've told yourself over the years? What is that thing? What is that thing? Okay. All right. Next point. Next point. You don't fight behavior first. This was a trap that I fell into for years, which was part of the reason that I kept going into this information overload, right? That I didn't belong. Ooh, that's good. Man, that was me all day long. And that was me all day long. I would tell myself over and over and over and over and over again that I didn't belong, right? Um, which was ironic for me. Like seriously, it was ironic for me. Let me do this real quick. Let me come on here. So this was ironic for me, right? For me to accept the fact within myself that I didn't belong was strange for me because I grew up in a home where my parents wouldn't allow me to even accept that thought, right? They told us that we could be whatever we wanted to be. They told us that as long as we keep God first, family second, education third, they said we can pick the fourth as long as it's positive. And all of my brothers and I, we've done extremely well, done really, really well. We have a phenomenal relationship. And so it was a little different for me over the years to accept that as a internal narrative for me, right? Because again, I'm saying I don't belong. But it wasn't until I went back to identify where that actually came from that I began to correct that error in thinking. Kind of like what Jim Rohn said, right? You have to pick up new disciplines, correct the errors of the past, and pick up new disciplines for the future. I went on this ridiculous journey of personal growth and development, and I was able to pinpoint the root cause of why I felt like I didn't belong. So that, man, that's a really, really good one. Really, 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 really good one. Thanks for sharing that one, man. I can relate 100% with that. Right. So again, here's something to take down. You don't fight behavior first. I fell into this trap trying to fight behavior, right? If I just get my behavior right, everything else is going to fall into place, right? But the truth of the matter is, as a high capacity leader, you must confront the narrative in your mind. Notice that I keep talking about the mind. Why do I keep talking about the mind? Okay. We'll talk about it a little later. You must confront the narrative in your mind. Okay. But here's the solution. Here's the solution. Second Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5 tells us, it reminds us that we cast down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and we bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Now, for me, what that meant was after I discovered who I was, from the perspective of who God created me to be. I then had to get rid of, I had to do away with, and I had to literally suffocate. Watch this. I had to suffocate the thoughts or the imaginations that I had about myself, anything that was contrary to what I was being exposed to in the word of God. I had to literally suffocate that thought. And I literally had to suppress it, and I literally had to shackle it. I had to hold it captive, right? To what it and who it was that God told me that I was in his word, right? So write that down. Second Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. All right. So let's go on to reset number two. Reset number two. Reset number two is what I call the identity anchoring phase, right? This is the alignment phase. Okay. This is the alignment phase. Now, in the alignment phase, the objective is to align your identity with purpose. Now, here's the thing, because purpose in and of itself is not necessarily, let me say this first before I go there. For me, it wasn't something that I just discovered overnight. Some of y'all may be able to relate to this, right? Purpose was not something that I discovered overnight. It took decades for me to discover what my purpose was in life, right? Because I wasn't seeking it in a place where God placed it, which was within me. Is this making sense? And so I was looking for purpose. I was looking for people. I was looking for man to validate and tell me what purpose was. But I never, ever look within myself to validate what my purpose was, right? So once you go into this alignment phase, your objective then is to align your identity with your purpose. Who you see yourself to be must be in alignment with what you were called and created to be. I'll say it again. Who you see yourself to be, identity, must be in alignment with who you were created to be. Oh my goodness, I'm telling y'all, this was a game changer. But here's the problem in this phase: your behavior still follows the lead of your self perception. This is why I told you that the first reset must be you have to change your internal narrative, because your behavior is still going to follow the lead of what you perceive or how you see yourself. Right. So the intentional redirect here is you have to stay mindful that the brain, watch, corresponds and functions in accordance with identity in order to maintain the consistency. We talked about it before when we talked about pattern recognitions, right? Your brain will seek comfort in that which is familiar with. So what you have to do then is correct your thinking so you can create a new pattern that's familiar to the brain, or that becomes familiar to the brain in order to maintain this consistency. Hopefully this is making sense. All right? Because see, here's the reality. Here's the reality. You and I were created with intention, not confusion. When God created us, he did not create us with confusion. He gave us, every single one of us, a specific assignment, a specific purpose, a specific calling in which we are required to fulfill. And we are the only ones that can fulfill the assignment at the capacity in which we are supposed to fulfill it. So you were created with intention, not confusion. So anytime that you find yourself being confused, I submit to you that your identity is not in alignment with your purpose. Okay? But you may say that sounds good, but what's the solution? The solution is found in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. Remember, we said that you were created with intention and not confusion. It says this, it says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto," watch this, "good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them." So, what does that tell you? What does that tell me? That we're not here by accident. There's a reason that we're here, but it's our responsibility to discover what that is so that we can walk in that. Are y'all hearing me? Okay. So here's a question. Here's a question of alignment for you. The question is, who do I need to become to live the life I believe I was created for? Who do I need to become in order to live the life that I believe I was created for? Okay. Write that question down, take a screenshot. This is not something that you're probably going to be able to answer right away. Okay. But this is food for thought. Here's a quick, I call this the question of alignment. Again, who do I need to become to live the life I believe I was created for? Here's an exercise for you. Here's an exercise. We're coming up on 8 o'clock my time. Here's an exercise. If you fully trusted who you were created to be, what would you execute on this week? I want to hear that. I want to see that in the comments. If you fully trusted who you were created to be, what would you execute this week? Not next week, not 2 weeks from now, not next month, not before the year is up. If you fully trusted who you were created to be, what would you execute on this week? I'm interested. I'm interested. I'm interested. Because here's the thing, right? The truth of the matter is you must transform your thinking on a consistent basis. Here we are again with the ing on the end. This is a consistent requirement. Okay. Transformation, remember, begins with the renewing of the mind. Okay. This goes into reset number 3. I'm almost done. Reset number 3. I call reset number 3 the structured execution, which is the activation phase. The activation phase here, your objective is to take action based on your new identity. Okay. But here's the problem: clarity without a system will soon collapse. I fell into this trap, right? Where I thought I had clarity, but again, everything that I was doing was leading me down this path of just confusion and just frustration. And I had to understand that what I was doing, the actions, remember, the actions that I was taking was not in alignment with my new identity, with who I believe I was created to be. And so this clarity without a system, it began to collapse and I will fall right back into this spiral of getting stuck. Okay. And this is why high capacity leaders get stuck is because they go down this spiral and they go down this path of familiar territory internally. It's not external, it's internal. So here's the intentional redirect in this phase. You have to be intentional about this. Nobody else can do this. Only you can do this. You have to remove the toxic associations and the environments to provide the brain, here we go again, with new predictable patterns. This is how this works. Okay. It's only when you can remove uh, uh, the toxic relationships and the environments that's feeding your current pattern to provide the brain with a new predictable pattern. Okay. And this leads you to another equation, right? And how do you develop this confidence? Again, you have to look at it like this. Once you have clarity and you add to that this new identity, and you add to that the structure that you're developing, it equals or it turns into the confidence. Most of us don't have confidence because we don't have clarity. We have a mistaken identity and we have no structure, i.e., no system in place in order to create this confidence. Okay. Again, it's not because you're not capable. It's not because you're not worthy of it. You just don't have a clarity. You just don't have a clear identity and you don't have a structure. Okay. So here's the solution. Here's the solution. Don't overcomplicate it. 1 Corinthians 14:40 says, let all things be done decently and in order. Very, very simple. Very, very simple. Okay. Now we are almost done, but I want you to do something for a second. I want you to imagine waking up knowing exactly what matters in your life. I want you to imagine making decisions without any internal conflict. And I want you to imagine what life is like without the financial strain. What does that feel like? What is that experience? What would your life look like? Where would you go? Who would you bless? Who would you restore? Or what relationship would you restore? You understand what I'm saying? What would it look like if there was proper alignment from here on out? So, next question. How many times have you left an event or a class, but nothing changed? I can 100% admit this. I've left and I've gone through so many events, so many classes, I invested so much money only to change, not change anything in my life or not see anything change because information alone does not create the transformation. Okay. Information alone does not create the transformation. It's exactly 8 o'clock, and I want to be mindful. Yeah, 100%, man. Plenty of times, plenty of times. So, what I did, what I did was I thought about my own life, and I thought about uh, many of my clients and people that I have the opportunity to meet on a consistent basis. And I thought about what is it that I would want if I was in this situation, right? If I was going through these phases, through this phase in my life where I knew that there was something more in my life or to my life, but I just wasn't crossing the chasm of it. Like, what was it that I wish I had? And I'm excited. I'm excited because this is why I wanted you to be on here tonight because I need you to know that there's a solution. Okay. Again, remember, information alone does not create transformation. And I wish that I had somebody that could hold my hand and walk me through this process. And that's the very reason that I created and opened up the door for what I call Face the Roar Intensive. Okay. It's the Face the Roar Intensive. And I'm going to show you what this is really, really quick. And then I'm going to let you go. Okay. I'm going to show you what this was. And then I'm going to let you go really, really quick. Um, Let me see if I can open this up real quick. Okay. You should be able to see my screen. If you can see my screen, just give me a thumbs up on your in the comments. Okay. So here's the thing. The Face the Roar Intensive. Okay. This is a personal. Now this is listen, I just lead you to it here in a minute, right? So what I did was I thought about myself and I said, what was it that I was missing? And if I had somebody that could walk me through this process, what would that look like? Right? How would I be able to break through the fear? How can I rewire this identity? How can I build a purpose aligned life with clarity, confidence, and eventually be bold enough to release the gift? Like, listen, the Bible says that you're a man's gift will make room for him and place him before great men. One of the internal narratives, and I'll just be honest with you, one of the internal narratives that I had about myself is that I could not, within my own right, in my own thinking, I could not charge for my experience. It was crazy at the time. I'm telling you, it was nuts. Like, no, I'll just sit down with you for free all the time. Man, listen. Some of y'all, this may rub you the wrong way, but that's an internal narrative that you have to fix. Okay. Your gift will make room for you and set you before great men. That's biblical, right? So I created this for the high capacity professional who have made a decision that they're done living beneath their potential and they're ready to execute with precision. Okay. Now, let me go down here real quick just so you can see what this is, and then I'm going to lead you to where you can find it. Okay, I'll lead you to where you can find it. First and foremost, this is a 8 to 12 week coaching, and the reason I say 8 to 12 week because again, you may need a little bit more time, but it's a hybrid model. Okay, where you have we have weekly Zoom calls, you have private one-on-one sessions with me, right? You have additional training modules that will go that you have access to, and of course, you have access to a private community. You have access to the people that coach me at the same time, right? So this is again, I wish I had this. Okay. So let me go down here real quick so we can get you out of here. All right. So first and foremost, let me let you know this, okay? One of the traps that I continue to fall into is that I would invest in every quote unquote mindset program that was available to me. If I had the money, I would invest in it all the time. But again, remember, information alone does not create the transformation. And so I was still missing something. And so again, this is not another mindset program. Okay. What we do is we go deeper into the concepts that I scratched the surface on tonight, and I show you how to literally go through and eliminate those internal patterns. I show you how to upgrade the beliefs that's controlling your performance. Um, we build the momentum that compounds, right? Because again, remember, one of the barriers that we have is this false momentum and this inconsistent momentum. And then, of course, I'm going to show you how to take your gift and create income, cash flow, a strategy that's rooted in what you were sent here to do. So, over the course of 8 weeks, here's what happens. Week one, we go into what I call the awakening phase, right? This is where you shift from autopilot to intentional awareness. We sort of talked about it a little bit, but the core focus here again is to identify the invisible resistant patterns. Okay. um, you are able to define what I call the roar, all right, which represents your life. Week two, we go into how you rewrite the script, right? Where you identify the core narratives that's shaping your behavior and you deconstruct these emotional triggers. Okay. Very, very deep stuff. I'm telling you, I've gone through this process and I'm telling you it works. Number three, the belief reset. This is where you're going to map out and really just recalibrate your limiting beliefs. I'm going to show you why you believe what you believe, and I'm going to show you how to break that once and for all, even when it comes down to stuff that's been passed on from generation to generation. I'm gonna show you how to break it. All right. Week four, we go into what I call the identity recode, what you were created for versus what you were conditioned to be afraid of. Right, what you were created for compared to what you were conditioned to be afraid of. I wasn't able to go deep into that tonight. I wanted to, but for the sake of time, I couldn't go that deep. But there's something that you've been conditioned to be afraid of, and I'm going to show you how to one, identify it, and then how to get rid of it. Week five, we go into what I call vision architecting. Okay, where you design the life your future self requires. And I'm going to show you again. We talked about, remember, that once your identity becomes aligned with purpose, it's game over, right? And so I show you how to connect the purpose to this actionable life strategy. Okay. Week six, we go into the what I call the momentum mechanic, where you build the systems. Everything is a system. And I'm gonna show you how to build a system where you can make success, whatever that means for you, where you can make success predictable. Number seven, or week number seven, is what we call purpose to prosperity. Again, a man's gift makes room for him and sets him before great men. So I'm gonna show you how to align your gifts with the real world impact. Okay. I'm gonna help you break out of the guilt of monetizing what you're gifted at. Okay. And then week number eight is what I call the roar embodied. The roar embodied. This is where we enforce the growth habits, the community accountability. And of course, we're going to go through some things that you can do on an ongoing basis that's going to get you success on a consistent basis. In addition to that, when you decide that you want to be a part of this Face the Roar intensive, you also getting access to, and I talked about it in the very beginning, you're getting access to my invisible leadership drag assessment. I literally show you how to identify the limiting beliefs or the gaps that's interfering with your clarity, is interfering with your confidence and the execution. And as a leader, you need to know what it is that is blocking your progress, and you're going to have access to that. In addition to that, you're going to get my Lions Den book. And you're also going to get the Cultivating Potential Within Purpose book. Okay. So now go to I'll put the link down here where you can go to find out more about that. But listen. This is hands down what I wish and what I hoped someone would have taught me on the way to this life. Okay. So with that, again, I wanted to make sure that I was mindful of your time. So, if there are no comments, questions, anything whatsoever, if I missed, let me make sure I'm going through and I'm not missing anybody. But if you want to be a part, I want you to go to, as a matter of fact, here underneath this video, because again, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Okay. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not looking for everybody. I want to work with those that are looking to break out of this mode of complacency. Okay. So, again, after this, I'm going to put the link below for you to get more information on this intensive. And I pray that we see you on the inside. All right. So, all right, family. That's all I have for tonight. Again, for those of you that were over in the Zoom room, I do apologize for whatever reason we were having some technical difficulties, but I'm thankful that we were able to come here. And again, you can look at this on. I believe we're live on YouTube, and I'm also on the LinkedIn. Okay. So I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I want to make sure, man, no problem. And no problem, man. I am looking forward to seeing you in a few months, Doc. That sounds good to you, man. That sounds good on you. All right. So, all right, family. If there are no other questions, I am done for the night. I am done for the night. Okay, so I appreciate you guys. Remember, I always say this, those that know me know that I live by this motto, and that is when you are living in your purpose, there's no such thing as competition. I appreciate y'all. Let's go ahead and shift identity so we can change the world together. I'll see you on the inside of the intensive. God bless y'all. Good night.